Stefan, Mr. Wiggles Clemente, Rocksteady Crew, Electric Boogaloo, Zulu Nation, TC5 Click, straight out the Boogie Down Bronx, young Puerto Rican kid from the BX, living a hip-hop life since the mid-70s, you could say, and here to spread the knowledge at the act. I grew up in the whole environment of hip-hop in the Bronx. Most cats are going to tell you that they saw the whole thing come up because we did. It was all in the streets, it was everywhere. Not just in the jams and the music and the mannerisms of the people, how we walk, how we talk. It's really just like a Bronx lifestyle that got popular because all the things that we put on it, the swag, the moves, and so forth. If I had to put a date on it, exact dates, I would say rocking, I learned in about 76, 77. It's hard because I never knew I would have to remember these years. The years I remember was 1976 because that was it was a big year in the spirit of America. And then you had 77, the blackout. But also popping I learned in 80, 81, and locking. But before that, when I was a kid, I was doing the robot, the machine gun, it was like a dance with Burns that we did when we were kids. Always dancing, man. But I'm also a writer. This was one of my first passions, was writing. Most b-boys are going to tell you they were writers back in the days. It was all synonymous with the whole culture. Even Kool Herc was a writer, you know. And I was an MC. I DJ'd, I did everything. Everything. Anything I get my hands on, I did. Well, it's a general term for me because I took it as many things. In dance, my sister Wanda, who was a rocker, rocking was a big influence on my dancing. My sister was a great dancer. My whole family, let's say my whole family was a family of dancers. Salsa, merengues, hustle, the Spanish hustle, rocking, all the disco dances. When I got onto the streets and I had my first battle, it was against a b-boy. I had already experimented with b-boy moves, but it was this battle that I had with this little kid who must have been of Zulu Nation influence, of Zulu King influence. And this was 1978 maybe. And he burnt me. I was more rocking, we were both roboting, but then he did ground moves and we had a couple exchanges that were funny. But this battle changed my life. He taught me the spider footwork, he taught me some Russians. After he battled me, he burnt me in front of my whole crowd. They took me to the hallway and taught me. So that's how it was. You got burnt, then you practiced. That little kid influenced me, but also cats like Quinty, you're not gonna know these names. Long Wolf Crew, there were cats like a famous group called Dance Dimensions, Latin Symbolics. These are heroes of the ghetto. The name that echoed in the Bronx was a guy named Rubber Band, who everybody knew was a famous rocker that traveled from Bronx. He's from the Bronx, but he traveled to Manhattan, to Brooklyn, to Queens. He battled, he performed, he got down in all the clubs all over the city and helped spread the knowledge of rocking. And then when I got back into breaking again, Rocksteady, Kenny, Legs, and Freeze. Mr. Freeze, believe it or not, the white boy. He was a big influence on me, believe it or not. He had a clean style. I thought he was incredible. Crazy Legs and Kenny. My partner Fable at the time. Probably the top dancers from my generation in the 70s up to the late 80s was Beaver from Zulu Kings, who was probably the best b-boy of my time. I'm a young generation b-boy. Anybody that's mid to late 70s is still second and third generation. And then there was a party rocker named Slick Watts, and he was very famous. And he was, see, back then the b-boys were also party rockers. They were party dancers, just like Elite Force. All the b-boys could party dance. And Slick Watts was the top cat from the Bronx. Very famous cat. We never had the work funk styles. That's a new term that Pop and Pete came up with to separate the popping, especially the electric boogaloo style of popping from hip hop. because the knowledge was getting mixed up. Whenever we tell people that popping comes from West Coast, they would ignore us and they would write, no, it comes from the Bronx or it comes from New York. So the word funk styles is a term that Pop and Pete came up for the electric boogaloo subculture from the West Coast. Now, when we saw popping on Soul Train, we didn't know how to interpret it, so we called it electric boogie, named after the electric boogaloos, and we did it like a hip hop style. So, like a hip hop style of popping that we call electric boogie. When you see popping and hip hop or freestyle dance, that's generally electric boogie. I'd say when it got mixed together there was 2 times. One time nobody knows about, it was in '75 when the Lockers came to New York to do a TV show, and they met the Rockers, Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan Rockers in a club called the Grand Ballroom. And in that club they had a battle. Nobody knows about this battle. It's a famous battle for that era, and we're learning about it now. And yeah, the Lockers, Shabba-Doo, Greg, all of them, rest in peace Greg, battled the original Rockers, Southside, who's an original B-boy. They battled, I believe it was, we're trying to find out the exact names, but Southside, B-boy Southside was one of the names that Greg from the Lockers named, rest in peace. And they had a battle and an exchange. And the next time that it happened was when Sugar Pop came to New York, and Sugar Pop came to my hallway in the Bronx, and we had an exchange. And that's when popping and all that kind of got mixed in with hip hop. Well, it died 2 times. There was one time well, the b-boy scene died 2 times. In the late 70s, the b-boy scene went down because the freak came in, and then eventually the webo, another dance from the Latino community, came up. And the b-boys went further uptown. It's not that it died, it just moved way further uptown. And that's where Track 2 and Spy and a lot of these guys can tell that story. In my neighborhood, it was done. If you b-boyed at a party, they laugh at you. In 1978, yeah, the girls would laugh, everyone. So we stopped, and we started doing a dance called the Freak that you did with a girl, and everybody started rhyming and doing more graffiti. I got with a group called TC5, very famous graffiti crew that helped initiate members into Rocksteady, including myself and Fable. Then the dance came on strong again when Crazy Legs went to Manhattan and started a division of Rocksteady, and the media got a hold of it, the dance blew up. And then we had, you know, a mid-'80s crisis when the media just kind of dropped it as a fad. Many of the dancers went back into the streets hustling and doing street things. And it was a scary time because when people went back to the street, you know, we missed our educational opportunities. So a lot of cats went to what they naturally were doing before hip-hop became famous. And a lot of people didn't make it, they died. So after that, we saw that there was an important thing for us to get back together, so we did. We formed a group called Get Original. We did a show called So What Happens Now, me, Crazy Legs, Kenny, and Fable, and we performed it. We put on another show called Jam on the Groove. The Germans and the Italians came in a group called Battle Squad. They met us in New York. They were part of the resurgence of bringing the dance back. They never quit. They kept the power combination style going. They basically took the power combos that were hand-delivered from New York, not LA, the power combinations come from New York. They took them and advanced it into crazier combinations. So guys like Storm, Emilio, Maurizio, Mucella, which in my opinion, it was Mucella that set off the B-girl scene. Mucella set off the 90s B-girl scene. It was her. She was already advanced, training with Emilio. And Battle Squad. So, you know, that time was an important time for all of us because then we set that generation off, and out of that came Style Elements and Renegades, very important young groups. You had groups in Texas coming up, Havoc, Coro, groups in Hawaii, groups in Europe, and I think that was a good time. Yo, what's up? It's the Almighty Supreme, the Almighty Supreme. Right. It's the Porter Rock with the Porter Block and your Porter Block with the Porter Glock. Coming at you straight out the BX, the Puerto Rico Chico, Al Pacino, Rob De Niro, built like Casino, the Almighty Supreme, Mr. Wiggle, scientifically born. Recognize everything we do is from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top. Never stop the hip hop, body rock, Zulu, BX2. Woo-hoo. All right.